Hi, everybody, and welcome to Autism Awakening, the podcast that helps you help your child with autism. I'm Dr. Jared Scourin, and right now it is the end of March 2024, and we are finishing up our 3-month podcast mini-series of all the biomedical and medical ways to help your child with autism. So this 3-month mini-series is kind of culminating where next week is World Autism Awareness Day, week, month, celebration time. That's the first week of April. It's been kind of segmented out for autism awareness across the world. And this is an opportunity where Spectrum Awakening uses to make sure we can offer you all the different things to try for your kids. So next week is going to be our biggest sale of the year. Spectrum Awakening does this twice a year. They do 25% off for Black Friday in November, and they do 25% off during World Autism Awareness Day week, kind of the first week of April they do this. So it's a great time for you guys to try something new on Spectrum Awakening, or to get a lab test at a deeper discount. Whatever you guys are interested in, next week is the time to do it. And of course, Spectrum Awakening, as you know, all the supplements are gluten-free, dairy-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee on all the supplements. So there's no risk to try something new. And next week is the week to try something or stock up on all the stuff that you're using regularly. So I thought I would take this podcast and take a look at some of the biomedical testing that our kids do. Now, there's a lot of different biomedical tests out there. There's genetic tests, which we talk about all the time. There's other different kind of tests like the FRAT test for folate receptor antibodies. There's heavy metal tests. There's food sensitivity tests. There's hair toxic analysis. There's a lot of different tests out there. But the two most common ones, hands down, are the OAT test, the organic acid test, and a stool test. So that's what I really wanted to focus on today. I wanted to kind of walk you through and deep dive into the organic acid test, the OAT test, and the stool test. So we're going to deep dive into those, and I want to show you, well, let me just say this. Number one, if you already have an OAT test or a stool test, pull it on out. Let's kind of go through it, ask any questions. I want you to kind of see what you've got. Because again, I get on my soapbox a lot, but I see a lot of the autism professionals will focus on certain parts of the test and ignore other parts of the test. And I don't want anything ignored. You know, if you're doing testing, I want you to know exactly what you have. So a lot of times I'll go over these OAT tests and stool tests and such with families that have had them done with other practitioners and say, hey, did you do this? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, did you do this? And they're like, no, we didn't even talk about that. I'm like, well, you got abnormal lab values. We need to address it. So I want to deep dive on this stuff with you. If you've never had an OAT test, an organic acid test, if you've never had a stool test, well, maybe this is the time to try to get one, okay? Maybe this is the time, again, next week, big sale. Maybe that's when we get this for your child and kind of take a step forward into understanding medically what's happening with your kid. So first off, as you know, I love research. So let's get into some research about these tests, not too much. And then we're going to walk through and again, deep dive into the OAT test results. So here's the first one. And this is a research study that talks about organic acids as potential biomarkers for autism, and kind of a basic study. But what it says is that urine organic acids represent a novel and accurate strategy for the diagnosis of autism. And these biomarkers could be valuable for future research or research on the pathogenesis of autism and possible interventions, okay? So again, kind of a basic study abstract, but what I really wanted to highlight is that scientists and researchers are understanding that you can look at these organic acids through the urine and you can identify things that are treatable, okay? The research study, as it says in the end of the abstract, potential interventions, all right? What it also does say, which I disagree with, is that we can use these tests for the diagnosis of autism. I completely disagree with that. I've seen organic acid tests on neurotypical adults that are abnormal. So I'm not going to agree that organic acids are used for diagnosis. That you need to do with a developmental pediatrician or a neurologist, etc. But potential treatments, 100%. And that's why we do these tests. We do these tests not just to understand what's going on in your child. We do these tests so you can find treatments and interventions that are going to help your child improve and recover. All right, here's another one. Urine organic acids test to assess biochemical and nutritional individuals with autism. Significant differences were found between the autistic children and the control group, which was neurotypical kids, in these specific organic acids. They mentioned oxyglutaric and isocitric, citric, etc. Organic acids tests can be used to assess an individual need for nutrient and biochemical abnormalities, especially important for autistic children. So again, so important to say, hey, why am I doing these tests? I'm doing these tests for answers on what I can do for my child. That's what's important. How can I get information to help my child? Okay, we can take educated guesses. That's great. We do this all the time. Lab tests are going to give you medical information on your child for exactly what they need. Here is another one. Urine metabolomics and potential biomarkers for autism. And they talk about these organic acids, including 3-hydroxyisovaleric, homovanillic acid, adipic acid, zerberic acids, and indole acetic acid were significantly different between autism and typical developing groups. Okay, results revealed that 88% of cases were classified correctly into the autism or typically developed groups based on the urine organic acid profile. Now, I find this abstract really interesting, okay? So they did organic acids on kids with autism, kids without autism. They said, hey, these markers seem to be abnormal in the kids with autism and not in the neurodeveloping kids. 88% of the time, they were able to look at the results and say, oh yeah, that's a child with autism or that's a child without autism. And that's pretty intriguing, okay? Especially when, again, a point to hammer home here, treatments are available. That's what matters. Different organic acid results in those with autism than those without autism, and those abnormal results indicate natural treatments. Next, this I found intriguing. This looked at EEG abnormalities. That's EEG is when you put those electrical nodes on your head and check for seizures, okay, or abnormal brain activity. EEG abnormalities and urinary organic acids in children with autism, and also blood amino acids. So what they found is there's an abnormality in this amino acid called threonine, but they also found an abnormality in this hydroxy-3-methylglutaric acid was found to be associated with the presence of EEG discharges. So whether it's seizures or absent seizures or just abnormal brain activity, it was associated with an abnormal amino acid threonine and associated with an abnormal organic acid called hydroxymethylglutaric. And we're going to point that out on the OAT test that I'm going to show you. All right, pretty cool stuff. Here's soapbox time again. All right, part of the OAT test results can indicate intestinal infections, can indicate yeast infections, mold infections, and bacterial infections. Okay, you should double check this with a stool test. All right, and again, I see a lot of practitioners in the autism world run these organic acid tests, say, hey, you've got intestinal infections based on these urine organic acid tests. We're going to treat that infection. And you end up treating it and treating it and treating it for months and months and years. And you do the repeat OAT test and you're like, it's not going away. Okay, maybe that's not the right test. All right, and this is my soapbox and I want to show the research to back it up. Okay. Urine organic acid tests in children with altered gut microbiome and autism. So there was a marker called P-cresol, which again, I'll show you on the OAT test. P-cresol and another one, HPA, which people ask me a lot about on these podcasts. We cannot confirm the presence of the HPA urine as a biomarker for Clostridia, okay? That'll make more sense when I show the OAT test in a bit. What they're saying is this organic acid is not associated with this. So this organic acid, which on some OAT tests distinctly says this is associated with a gut infection, Clostridia, this research study is saying it's not. Okay, so again, just wanted to highlight that. Metabolites of human urine can be used as biomarkers for alterations of gut microbiome with caution. With caution, please. Guided treatment should be administered only based on the gut microbiome analysis results. That's a stool test in combination with urinary organic acid results, but not solely based on organic acid biomarkers. Okay, so again, really important point here that organic acid tests highlight organic acids that may indicate yeast, mold, or bacterial infections. This research study says don't base it on that alone. Also base it on stool testing, okay? It's an important, and we're gonna highlight that as we go over a few. All right, a couple more research studies here. No, a few more. We're getting into the stool tests, okay? This talks about GI flora, children with autism, correlation with autism severity. Gastrointestinal symptoms were strongly correlated with the severity of autism. Children with autism had much lower levels of short-chain fatty acids, and children with autism had lower levels of a probiotic called bifidobacter. So we see changes in the gut, we see infections in the gut, we see changes to our microbiome / probiotics with kids with autism, okay? And of course, we're all worried about fungal infections and candida infections in autism. Dysbiosis of gut fungal microbiome in children with autism, okay? Saccharomyces and aspergillus, that's a yeast and a mold. Saccharomyces is a yeast, aspergillus is a mold. Saccharomyces and aspergillus showed significant differences between autism and control groups. They may be involved in the abnormal gut fungal community structure of autism. Fungal microbiome profile of children with autism and identified potential diagnostic species closely related to the immune response of autism. All right, so what does that all say? That abstract's a little clunky. But what it says is that, look, our kids on the spectrum, they don't have great immune systems, all right? And we've been talking about this all year in our podcast. And so the immune system of the gut seems to be predisposed to be poorly functioning in our kids on the spectrum. So you're going to get fungal infections. Excuse me, you're at a high risk for fungal infections with our kids with autism. And stool testing can identify these fungal, yeast, candida, and mold infections. This is why stool testing is so important. Okay. Last but not least, there's another marker, and I'm going to be showing these on the stool tests. There's another marker here. Fecal calprotectin levels correlate with autism diagnosis. Calprotectin in the feces, and calprotectin is just a chemical marker which we test on stool tests. Calprotectin in the feces is produced by activated white blood cells in the gut. Its levels affect local inflammation of the gut. In non-relative, significantly lower values of fecal calprotectin were observed than subjects with autism. Groups with autism had significant correlation of fecal calprotectin with all domains of autism, include social interaction, communication issues, restrictive and repetitive behaviors. Results suggest that low-grade intestinal inflammation may be one of the factors implicated in the pathophysiology of autism. So again, let me summarize that real quick. There's a marker. Let me rephrase. There's a testing marker in the poop of kids with autism. It's called calprotectin. It's a measure of inflammation. This inflammation in the gut is dramatically associated with autism. You can test for this level in stool tests, and then we can have natural supplements to support the reduction of that gut inflammation. Okay? All right. So that's kind of some basic research that I wanted to show. And again, the basic research is just to say, hey, look, science is looking at organic acid and stool tests with kids with autism, and we're finding associations, all right? So we know this testing is valuable. That's why if you're interested in a test for autism, you're not going to go to your pediatrician and just get standard blood work like a CBC or a chem screen. You're going to get organic acids. You're going to get a stool test, all right? If you don't have a doctor that will order organic acid testing or stool testing, you can get it from our website, spectrumawakening.com. You're going to get the test kit shipped to you. You're going to send it back to the lab. I'm going to get the results. I'm going to write up a written interpretation for you, and then you'll get your lab results and my interpretation of ideas for you to help naturally. All right. So let's get into some examples. So I'm going to go over the OAT test from Great Plains, or now Mosaic Diagnostics. I'm also going to go over the stool test from GI Map. Now, Spectrum Awakening offers organic acid tests both from Mosaic / Great Plains and Genova. We offer stool tests from GI Map and Mosaic and Genova. So you can take your pick. They're all amazing tests. They're both amazing labs. You can take your pick of which one. All right, let's go over this. And where do I want to start here? All right. here's where I want to begin. Let's go to the first page of the OAT test. Now, the first page of the OAT test is probably the one that's most used in our autism world. But like I mentioned before, a lot of times health professionals will ignore the rest of this test. So I want to get into that. But let's go over this top part first. As you can see, I highlighted a bunch of things. How do you look at this test? Well, on the left are the different chemical metabolites that are measured, all right? And then over here, you're going to have this little diamond with your result, okay? If the marker's on the left, it's low. If it's on the right, it's high. This bar indicates the average result. And I got into kind of a discussion with Dr. Shaw, who created Great Plains. And these results, the reference range of the results are not based on what's healthy, just like your regular labs, right? And this is where I kind of got into a discussion with him, because wouldn't it be great if reference ranges were based on what's healthy instead of what's average? And that's how most labs create reference ranges, just based on what's average for the people who do the test, all right? So who's doing this test? Who's doing this test are kids on the spectrum, okay? So, and other people, obviously. So are these ranges what's best? And this is where I kind of, want to make sure we're interpreting this correctly, and you'll get into some ideas of this later. But this bar is basically the realm of the average person. If it's high, you're in the top 1% to 2%. If it's low, you're in the bottom 1% to 2%. Because Great Plains / Mosaic does, typical 2 standard deviation bell curve analysis for reference ranges, okay? Just for those who like to get like mathematical nerdy like myself. So, all right, this top section here are yeast markers, okay? So these are markers for yeast or fungal infections. Anything that says aspergillus or fusarium, those are actually mold markers. So if those are high, there's a possibility. There's a possibility of having a yeast or mold infection, okay? Now over here, these are bacterial markers. So these markers, the lab indicates, might be indicative of a bacterial infection. And down here, these are markers for potential clostridial bacterial infections, okay? And again, I want to bring back to that conversation on reference ranges, the research study that you should combine an organic acid test with a stool test if you're really going to diagnose intestinal infections. And let me tell you why. It's because these markers and these metabolites, there can be false positives. And what's a false positive? A false positive is when the marker says there's a problem, but there's really not a problem. There's a different reason that the level is high. So let me show you this. This is kind of an interpretation guide of false positive marker causes. So these are different organic acids: indole acetic acid, phenylacetic acids, benzoic acid, hippuric acid, citramalic, and tartaric acid. These are going to be elevated if you eat grapes or apples or berries or orange juice or chocolate, or have certain foods that have certain preservatives. So there's a lot of these organic acid markers that might be elevated on your test, but are not indicative of a problem. They're indicative of, hey, I give my kids some orange juice, or they ate some grapes, okay? This is where things start to get a little confusing. So I've highlighted these markers on the left, okay? So again, the things like the citric malic is going to be abnormal for again, let me just kind of find this. Apples. If you eat apples, that first marker is going to be high, okay? This marker here, tartaric, which they have elevated on this example sample report, okay? That's going to be elevated if your kid eats chocolate, and it's also a food additive. So you may be looking and say, oh, I got a mold infection, but oh geez, my kid just ate some chocolate, all right? So are we really going to go down that road of I'm going to get my house checked for mold when maybe this is a red herring, okay? Down here, all these bacterial markers could be because you're eating different foods like orange juice or strawberries or other berries. I mean, 4 out of these 5 markers are potentially in foods that your kid will eat, okay? Are we going to diagnose a bacterial infection from that? Not without a stool test, guys. And again, this is where I get on my soapbox that you may have worked with other health professionals and say, oh, look, you got these infections, but what if it's a false positive? okay? Now, if it's real, great, I want you to take care of it, but I want you to be cautious because I don't want you to be doing this for years and years and years thinking you're not getting anywhere when it's not even a problem, all right? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Down here at the bottom, we got these other clostridial markers. And again, this one here is another marker from berries and orange juice, okay? This HPHPA was in that research study that said, that it disagreed with this lab, that it is not a marker for Clostridia infections, all right? Then we've got this one here, the cresol. Shoot, I forgot what the cresol was for. Cresol was one of those that was elevated in most of these kids, okay? So really intriguing, but it's a good start. Now, that's just the first page of the OAT test. The second page of the OAT test, which looks like this, is markers for mitochondrial issues and markers for neurotransmitters, okay? In addition, we have markers for oxalates. Now, I know a lot of people go through trying to reduce their oxalates and doing low oxalate diets. In my opinion, elevated oxalate markers on organic acid testing is indicative of an intestinal infection. Certain intestinal infections produce oxalates, and those oxalates get absorbed into the bloodstream and get into your urine. So when you see elevated oxalates on a lab test, maybe you don't need to go on a low oxalate diet. Maybe you need to treat the infection, okay? Think about that. These other categories here, the glycolic, the mitochondrial markers, these are all analyzing mitochondrial dysfunction in your kids. Now, we talked about mitochondrial dysfunction at the beginning of our podcast mini-series because so many kids on the spectrum have mitochondrial dysfunction. Though mitochondria produce energy for the body, without that energy, we have slower brain development and poorer immune system. So all these gut infections, you have a predisposition to them because you have mitochondrial dysfunction, okay? So when these markers are high, we need mitochondrial support, okay, like our MitoMax supplement. When these markers are low, it's usually indicative that you need more protein, okay? Now, I did highlight one here, which is the methylglutaric, okay? And hold on, I wanted to go back. What was the methylglutaric was about one of these, and I just wanted to highlight it. What I really wanted to find was that one with the C. Yes, okay. Hold on a second, guys. This methylglutaric marker here, all right, was looked at in that research study that showed there's a potential association with seizures or absent seizures, okay? So if you've seen your kid have a seizure, if you think they may have absent seizures, if you've got this marker elevated here, this methylglutaric marker elevated in your organic acids, maybe you should consider an EEG, okay? And I know EEGs are hard to do, but if you can do them, anywhere between 48 and 72 hours, is best. If you're going to do an EEG, 48 to 72 hours will catch 90 to 99% of seizures. All right. Next, the neurotransmitters. All right, I see these ignored all the time, guys. I really kind of get on my soapbox about this because brain chemistry controls the speed of the brain. It controls sensory, it controls motor, it controls development and language and sleep. So these really need to be looked at. A big one for me is serotonin. Obviously, most of our supplements started with balancing brain chemistry. The Scour Solution, Power and Focus is all about this. You want to make sure the serotonin level's high. And again, this is where I disagree with the reference range. The reference range says your serotonin levels can be less than 2.9, and that's fine. Well, guess what? If I have zero serotonin, I'm not going to be very happy. I'm not going to be sleeping very well. I'm not going to be speaking much, okay? So I disagree with this reference range because I want a minimum level of serotonin. I want a healthy level, okay? I normally go for the number 6 on these organic acid results. That's me. But again, this is where I want to make sure we're deep diving into the accurate interpretation of health. Okay, next we've got markers for dopamine, markers for norepinephrine and epinephrine. These are important as well because those highlight focus, concentration, and motivation in our kids. Alrighty then, next page on the OAT test, we've got these markers here. These are a couple different markers. This first one is folate metabolism. So if these are elevated, you probably want to supplement with folinic acid. But honestly, you should be trying folinic acid regardless. I mean, folinic acid is so good for so many of our kids. If somebody asked me, what is the number one most important vitamin to try in your child with autism, it's folinic acid. And our superfolinic acid formula combines high quality folinic acid with the other nutrient cofactors that increase absorption into the brain. I want everybody to try our superfolinic acid if you haven't tried it yet, okay? You'll know one bottle and you'll know, hey, this is great, or no, I'll just do something else, okay? All right, next, this other section is important and I feel like it's in the wrong place. This is ketone and fatty acid oxidation. These are other markers that indicate mitochondrial dysfunction. And usually if you have any of these high, you're gonna need some carnitine. And carnitine is another great supplement for our kids. In fact, I saw a comment go by about our Mitomax mitochondrial formula, so we'll get to that in a second. Last but not least, these nutritional marker categories. Now, I got a few comments on here. Number one, if you see any of these markers with stars, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them had stars. The stars indicate an inverse lab analysis, which means if this marker is high, your vitamin level is low, okay? So it's opposite day, as my daughter says. Like, can I have my allowance, Dad? No, opposite day. Oh, okay. So like this first marker, methylmalonic acid, if this is high, your vitamin B12 level is low. Okay. Another thing to comment on, like I commented on with the serotonin, this marker here, vitamin B6, okay? There's no bottom end of the range. And this is actually measuring vitamin B6 levels. So you could have a 0 on this report and a report would say, yeah, that's fine. So that's not a reference range based on health. It's a reference range based on the average person that came in here. And a lot of people have low vitamin B6 levels. So the lab says that's okay. I disagree, all right? So what else do I see in here that I'd like to highlight? Probably the vitamin C level. The vitamin C level on this test is almost always low. I'd say 95% of these OAT tests, and I've looked at hundreds of these, if not 1,000. The vitamin C marker on this is 95% of the time low, period. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt, but I think more antioxidants are always good. More fruits and vegetables are always good. So I think the intervention from it is going to be fine regardless. But I just see it low so often, it makes me wonder the accuracy of it. But again, hey, more antioxidants is going to help. Okay, let's move on to the stool test. Before we move on to the stool test, I wanted to talk about one other thing on here. Number 7, arabinose. Where is it? Arabinose right there. Arabinose is one of the most commonly elevated markers on this yeast panel, okay? But you can have a normal arabinose, and arabinose is in the yeast and fungal category. You can have a normal arabinose and still have yeast. As it says here, given that only certain Candida species produce arabinitol, it may serve as an indirect assessment for subclinical candidiasis. Basically, you can have a false negative. You can have a normal arabinitol or arabinose level, they're the same thing, and still have yeast. This is why combining an OAT test with a stool test is so important, guys. Okay? All right, let's get on to the stool tests. Again, we offer 3 stool tests on our website, the GI Map, the Genova GIFX, and the Mosaic Diagnostic stool test. Honestly, dirty little secret of the industry, they were all created by the same guy. All right, so they're practically identical tests. They're all way better quality of any stool test you'll get from a typical lab or hospital. I mean, these stool tests are so advanced that there's nothing that compares to them, okay? How do we interpret them? The first page looks at bad guy infections, things like C. diff and E. coli and salmonella and parasites and viruses, okay? If they're there, pretty much. Next, we have analysis for H. pylori. And you know what? I see H. pylori in a lot of kids. And I'll even see doctors ignore it. We'll send, patients and families will take these test results to their doctor and be like, it says H. pylori. And they're like, yeah, you all got it. You're fine, and just send you on your way. And I really hate that dismissal of doctors of your child when there's something medically going on that they could help with, but they ignore it, okay? It upsets me and it should upset you. Then you will get a marker of your probiotics. So this is normal bacterial flora. This is looking at your probiotics. It's nice to know, however, interventions are limited. So this normal bacterial flora, look at your probiotics, okay? Looks at all these different kinds, including lactobacillus and bifidobacter. So I say the treatments are limited because there's only a couple of these probiotic, strains that you can get as a supplement. Okay, things like lactobacillus and bifidobacter, these are the common probiotic strains out on the market, so that's what you're going to get. These other ones aren't available, and they're mostly unavailable because they're anaerobic, all right? They live in areas with no oxygen. I mean, think of your intestines. It's just this dark, moist tube that's all smushed there in your abdomen, okay? Not a lot of oxygen going around. So there are many probiotics in your microbiome that will die with oxygen. And so you can't get them in a supplement because they're going to be exposed to air. So this is where I say probiotic interventions are limited. And frankly, the best thing to do is a fecal transplant. You know, and I know you just can't like go to Amazon and get a fecal transplant, but man, I really think it's the future for autism treatment. I wish more people would do it. I think it's amazing. All right, you can get it on the brown market. Ba-dum-bum. Next, moving on. Your stool test will look at other microbiome markers that might indicate dysbiosis, might indicate autoimmune, but we definitely want to look at fungus and yeast. So this is going to look at different fungal infections like candida, different yeast and mold infections, super important. And again, the thing that I think is so overlooked in our community is the parasite infections of our kids. I've said this in a few past podcasts because it was intense. You know, a parent a couple months ago sent me a picture of a 6-inch worm out of their kid's diaper. Okay? Our kids have these. We have parasites. We have worms. I know here in the US, we think, oh, it's a clean country. You can't get parasites. They're everywhere. All right? Frankly, you've got to assume every piece of meat, raw meat, has a parasite in it, period. Okay? And if you don't cook that meat well enough, you could get parasites. And if you're prepping the meat on the counter and your kid comes up and just touches the counter, sticks their hand in their mouth, they might get a parasite. They are way more common than you realize. Okay, so let's test for them. All right, let's test for them. In addition, and lastly, the stool test will look at some markers. And so the markers that I like, we have digestive markers like elastase that can tell us if our kid's digesting food. If not, we can give digestive enzymes. It's going to look at your immune system. I say time and time again, mitochondrial dysfunction is going to create a poor immune system in the gut. You're going to see that in this marker called IgA, all right? And trust me, I see kids with all these gut infections and they have low IgA. They have a low intestinal immune system. They have a low gut. Let me start over. I see a multitude of our kids with autism have gut infections, bacteria, yeast, mold, parasites. They are often associated with a poor gut immune system. They are associated with low IgA levels on stool tests. Poor immune system, increased risk for intestinal infections, which causes problematic behaviors in autism. Get your stool test now. Okay. All right. So, and then last but not least, we saw that research study associating gut inflammation with with autism symptoms, and that's called calprotectin. So you can measure calprotectin on here. I do it all the time. We measure calprotectin, whether we're doing these stool tests or even regular labs will have calprotectin stool tests. You can ask your doctor for that. Easy peasy, okay? So that's our deep dive into the OAT and stool tests. And again, these are probably the most popular autism biomedical tests out there. They are things you can ask from your doctor. And if your doctor's not going to do it, or if you just want to get it done fast, we have them on our Spectrum Awakening website. You order the test, we ship the test kit, or we talk to the lab, and the lab ships the test kit to you. You collect it. There's going to be a prepaid bag like FedEx or UPS. You send it back to the lab. I get the results. I interpret the results. I give you written instructions, and then you get the results and the instructions. So that's what we do. All right, let's get into the live Q&A. Before we do, coupon of the weekend, spectrumawakening.com. The coupon is LAB20. That's going to get you 20% off any of the supplements, any of the lab tests on our website. That expires March 31st, 2024. If you're interested in some one-on-one help with me, you can schedule a telemedicine video appointment on our website. Pretty cool stuff. And also, next week is our biggest sale of the year, 25%. It's not going to be 25% after that until Black Friday in November. Stock up on the supplements you like. Try a new supplement. Spectrum Awakening has a 30-day money-back guarantee. You try it, it doesn't work, your kid doesn't like it, send it back. Get your lab tests now if you want anything. I'm going to be launching next week an advanced guide ebook, a free ebook. And we have a free ebook now, which is a beginner's guide, kind of walks you through genetics and acetaminophen poisoning and constipation and the Scourin solution. We've got an advanced ebook guide. It's free. I want you all to download that from our website next week. And we're also going to have a checklist of all the different supplements we have, kind of a free download for you. So next week it's going to be some new stuff. We've been working on some new stuff like the ebook, and eventually we'll be turning that into an advanced course. So we've got an online course, a beginner's course. We're going to be creating an advanced course. So a lot of fun things that I've been trying to work on over the past year. It's going to come to fruition soon. All right, let's get into our live Q&A. Here we go. Brianna, what would show possible mold exposure on a stool test? And again, this stool test, the GI map, has a handful of mold markers in this yeast, fungi yeast section. So that's where you're going to look. Kay, Natalie's grandmother, always on. She says, thanks, you're welcome. Got it. My child's autistic with PANS and severe vocal stimming and sexual behavior like masturbation. What is your advice? Well, first off, if you've got PANS or PANDAS, we did a podcast on this 2 weeks ago. Go back and listen to that. But basically, it's a combination of antimicrobials and anti-inflammatories, like our Panda Bear, like our curcumin, like our Viragon, all right? Now, masturbation is something that's not talked about a lot because, we live in the U.S. and, hey, geez, I live up in New England and all the puritanical influences we've had for 400 years, so people don't like to talk about it. But look, it's a fact of life. So the first thing I want to talk about is the age of your child, right? So if you have a child with puberty and they're touching themselves, that might only last another 60 or 70 years. But if we're looking at a child that has not started puberty yet, then what we're dealing with is a sensory issue that needs behavioral training. It's basically like potty training. Okay, I got to pee and poop. I do it in this room. I want to touch my privates. I'm going to do it in that room, all right? I mean, I used to have kids hump the bed in my office, and the moms would be like, what are they doing? I'm like, oh, I got to do the birds and the bees here, guys. So it's going to happen, and it's going to happen more in our kids because they're sensory issues, and it feels good. And if they're not hurting themselves, fine. If they are hurting themselves, we definitely need some behavioral training, okay? Now, again, if it's puberty and on, that's life. If it's before puberty, we really need to work on the sensory issues. We really need to work on behavioral training for location of where they do this. All right. Next, Brianna, what's the best way to help yeast in the gut? Well, Brianna, we've got our yeast mold bundle, which is a combination of a biofilm enzyme, something to kill the bugs, and a binder. And that's the trio of treatments that you need for that. And we definitely did a yeast mold or a yeast infection podcast, I want to say 4th or 5th week, either late January, early February. You can go back and listen to that. Jasmine's always on. If you have a break without supplements, can you just start up as normal? Yeah. I got in a horrible car accident. I'm so sorry. Oh, I hope you're okay. Wasn't able to give them to my son for weeks. A huge negative change in behavior. Even school said something. Well, here's the good and the bad with that, Jasmine. A, they're working because you stopped and saw things get worse. All right. So that's the silver lining. But yeah, just start them up again. If you want to take this time to kind of start one at a time and see what they still need or what they don't need, you can do that. But either way, start them again. Kay says, Natalie, is bad acid reflux really bad and her allergies are bad? What do you recommend? Allergon. Guess what? Histamine and allergies cause acid reflux. So if the allergies are bad, I want you to go after that. Try our Allergon supplement. Try our histamine C supplement. If you need over-the-counter antihistamines, go with that as well until allergy season is through. Philomena McDonald. Oh, how are you guys doing? I hope the grandchild's doing well. Was your daughter pregnant a second time? I don't remember. I know you had the first grandchild 2 or 3 years ago. I hope they're well. Maria, hey, what's the difference between Common Cool and anger management? Great question, Maria. We get this a lot. Common Cool is an amino acid powder that relaxes the nervous system. Temper Tamer is an herbal supplement that balances cortisol stress hormone levels. Okay? So basically, did I say Common Cool? Oh gosh, Common Cool and anger management. Then I went off on Temper Tamer. Hold on. Pause, rewind. Common Cool is our sweet tasting powder of amino acids that helps calm the nervous system. It's going to help with sensory. It's going to help with behavior. Our anger management supplement is a vitamin, mineral, amino acid formula that reduces adrenaline levels and reduces glutamate levels. Glutamate is a very hyperactive brain chemical. Anger management helps convert glutamate into glutathione, which is the most important repair chemical of the body. Okay. For those of you who have been with me for a long time, you see that I'm kind of making these little segmented bits. We're doing that so we can kind of take those and clip them and send them onto Instagram. So it might be a little wonky, but that's what we're doing. All right, next question. Haheo, always on. Hey, doc, thanks for all you do. I recommend you all the time. Thank you. How is homeopathy different from functional medicine, and would you recommend if they were done simultaneously? All right, so let's just take a look at medicine. All right, hey, medicine, what is it? I got a child, and they're sick. What do I do? Well, I got a bunch of tools in my toolbox, okay? I can use a pharmaceutical. I can make a change in diet. I can give vitamin supplements. I can give herbs. I can use external therapies like hydrotherapy or ionic foot baths, or I can use homeopathy. So homeopathy is just a specific kind of medical intervention. All right, it's not a vitamin, it's not an herb. Homeopathy was actually invented in the late 1700s by a German medical doctor named Samuel Hahnemann, and it is a special natural therapeutic that that is based on the theory of dilution, that less does more. So homeopathy is where you take a substance and it's basically a hair of the dog that bit you. You take a substance and you dilute it, and that dilution, which is the homeopathic medication, is the treatment for what the substance would do. So again, if I drank too much, alcohol and I had a hangover, if I had a little bit of alcohol, I could get better from those alcohol symptom hangovers, all right? So it's kind of hair of the dog. So I love homeopathy. We used to have homeopathics on our website. We don't anymore. We kind of got blacklisted by the homeopathic company because we were selling way too much. The FDA got involved, but man, it's great. In fact, on my beginner's autism course, I have instructions on how you can make homeopathic Tylenol, homeopathic acetaminophen or paracetamol to help your child if that affected them. So I kind of went off on a soapbox as per usual. But yes, if you want to do homeopathy with other stuff, go for it. I mean, game on, whatever we can do to help our kids. There's a very popular homeopathic treatment therapy called CEASE therapy, CEASE, which was created to help kids with autism. Tina, hey, well, how often do you check oats to see if yeast is resolved? 6 months? Brianna, why would an OAT test show yeast in one section in the middle of the report but not at the top result sheet? Because different yeast infections will produce different chemicals, and those different chemicals, we monitor on the OAT test. So one strain of yeast might make these chemicals, and one strain of yeast might make these chemicals, and that's why it's always good to kind of double check this with a stool test. So, there is just no one yeast infection, there's just no one candida, there's actually many strains of candida. So that's why you're getting confusing things. And again, what if they're false positives because you gave your kid orange juice or strawberries, all right? Ariana, hey, I think the post office misplaced my supplement order. I received an email that it was delivered, but I can't find it. What can I do if I can't locate it? The first thing to do is contact your post office and tell them this. And then secondly, you can email our customer service, but it's kind of tough for us. I mean, once it leaves our factory, it's in the hands of the post office. So I hate when this happens, but contact the post office. And if you don't get anywhere, we can put in a file for a lost. We'll send you new ones and put in a file for a lost thing, but it's got to be lost for a certain number of days. Contact your post office. You get what you pay for. We did switch over to UPS a few years ago, but they were massively expensive. So we went back to the postal service, but they make mistakes all the time. Rodney's always on. What's up, man? Brianna, what do you see to be the main cause of high calprotectin and lysozyme levels? Well, it's caused by inflammation. That inflammation can be due to an infection, it can be due to food, or it can be due to an intestinal bowel disease. So I've had a multitude of our kids have Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, and those calprotectin levels will be through the roof. Okay. Philomena, trying to get an appointment didn't get a reply. Give them a day or two. Our office staff isn't there every day. So you may have to wait 48 hours, or a couple business days. But you know what? Be a squeaky wheel. If you want to get an appointment with me, for new patients, it's easy. You can book on my website on Spectrum Awakening. But if you want to get a follow-up appointment, just be that squeaky wheel of the office. Twice a week email, twice a week phone call till you get it. You can email me, but I'm just going to forward it to them. I don't do the scheduling. They don't let me make mistakes. They're like, you just stay on your phone. Oh, okay. Tina, do we repeat mycotoxins to see if the mold is gone? I would, for sure. Hey, one more question. Our son doesn't want to do anything fun. Doesn't use toys, doesn't use any of the playground equipment, just walks around. Is this connected to dopamine levels? Hey, that's a good question. I'm going to say maybe. Try our attention on the double supplement and see if that helps. That's a good one. Priyanka, for my daughter, the C. diff toxin AB is detected abnormal. That's on the stool test. That's a definitive C. diff infection. You need to treat that. I would treat it with antibiotics. You can use natural stuff too. I would use both. Try our biocillin supplement if your kid can swallow pills. Armando. How's Enzo, man? Rayleigh. My son is sick since October, every 2 weeks after vacation in Mexico. Strep, ear, tonsillitis, vomiting, ER twice in February. Infectious doctor doesn't know what to do. White blood cell was 44,000. Wow. Normal's under 10,000, everybody. CRP was a 79. I'm always negative on respiratory panel, negative thyroid, positive ANA. What's your advice? Pull out the tonsils. It's hiding there. It's hiding somewhere. Okay? Or do a stool test. Maybe there's an infection somewhere still. It's either in the lymph tissue, like in the tonsils and adenoids. It's in the gut. Do a stool test. Talk to an ENT. I would do that. Benny says, hello. Mirka, hey doc. We started as you recommended with the Mitomax supplement and we saw good improvements on our daughter. Better focus, better attention, better pooping. But as soon as we introduced power and focus, she completely changed. Less attention and focus. She started imagining things, drawing with her finger in the air. Very emotional, doesn't respond. What can we do? All right, drop down the power and focus. All right, keep on the Mitomax. That's awesome. Drop down the power and focus. Try anger management if you haven't yet, and then tiny power and focus doses. That's just the B vitamin sensitivity is what you're getting. So go slow. But I love that the Mitomax is helping. That's our mitochondrial support. If you see those mitochondrial markers high on your OAT test, try the Mitomax. Tina, would you also do a live on the Mito swab and the frat test? Yeah, sure, I can. We don't offer those on our Spectrum Awakening website anymore. We used to, but not anymore. But yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, frankly, they're pretty straightforward. The Mito swab test analyzes mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay, if it's abnormal, you take mitochondrial supplements like Mitomax. It's a cheek swab. The frat test is a blood draw, and it looks at autoimmune attacks on the folate receptor. Now, the folate receptor is this little tunnel that gets the folate from the blood to the brain. All right, and if your immune system is destroying that, well, it's hard to get folate and folinic acid across, and that's a blood test. So that's a 30-second answer on that. They're pretty straightforward. Sherry, most neurologists in South Florida do a 15-minute EEG. Yeah, that's what they do. Ask for a longer one. Diane says hello to everyone. Hello. Ellen, my son's serotonin marker was high at 24. He struggles with depression and anxiety. What could cause it to be too high? Well, I need to know if this is a serotonin blood marker or a 5-HIAA urine marker. Number one, I want you to try our Spectrum Tranquility supplement. And number two, is he taking any supplements with tryptophan or 5-HTP, or does he eat a lot of bananas and avocados before the test, which can also cause a false positive? Megan, are the doses for your supplements based on kids or adults? Kids. Lori, my son is 13, has ADD and autism. I'd love to make an appointment with you, but money-wise, I just can't. That's what the free ebooks are for. Okay, Lori, that's why I got the free ebooks. So what test do you think my insurance can order? I ordered attention on the double and pregnant alone calm in hopes of replacing the Adderall and Paxil. Okay, that's a great start. I love that. What other tests? Well, I would do an organic acid test, and he's 13, so check hormones. Check testosterone, check estrogen, okay? And cortisol. Cortisol, big one, and maybe try that temper tamer supplement. Go with that. Leslie, any B vitamins you recommended? Ours did not like the Mitomax. Yeah, I mean, you can get any B vitamin supplement on the market. We've got our kids multi Boomberry that's got great B vitamins in it. So yeah, it would be a great place to start. Jenny says my B1 was low. Selena, where do you suggest getting a fecal transplant? You got to get it through a gastroenterologist. It's the only, in the US, that's the only place that'll do it. I tried to order stuff for fecal transplants at my office, and the people that sell it, because it's regulated, they wouldn't sell to me. They say, we only sell to gastroenterologists, we only sell to hospitals, so you got to go that way. Google it. Google fecal transplant at a local hospital. Like even my local hospital here, they have a whole fecal transplant department. So it's there, they're just not going to recommend it. So you got to go searching for it and then go find that doctor. Lori, my son's 13. Oh yeah, talked about that. Heather Wynn, hello from Ireland. Hi, Heather Wynn. I hope I can come to Ireland next June. June 25 is my goal. My son suffers from gut issues, has his whole life. Good healthy eater, but dairy and gluten-free diet. I do fear over-the-counter probiotics aren't helping. Often they don't. What other options would be worth trying? Stool test, yeast mold bundle. Assume there's an infection and either test or just treat it. Don't forget, if you're in Ireland, you can use our European distributor, MandyMart. So you can do mandymart.eu, which would be for you. They've also got mandymart.co.uk, but you're in Ireland, so you want the EU one. All right. Marco, can you talk about leaky gut? I hear biocidin can seal the gut. Biocidin is another supplement. We used to sell it on our website. We don't anymore. We don't make it, but it's a good product. Look, leaky gut is inflammation, and our intestines are a very tight wall. They only let certain things, nutrients, across to absorb your food into the blood. But when there's inflammation, think of a sprained ankle. You sprain your ankle, it swells up because all that blood goes into your tissues. And so that's what happens with leaky gut is, your intestines, they inflame. Now you have holes, okay? So bigger molecules that usually can't pass through to your bloodstream do. I disagree. I do not think biocidin seals the gut. It is a great antimicrobial, and it will kill infections that could be causing the inflammation. But you could also have food causing that inflammation. You could also have autoimmune issues causing that inflammation. If you want to heal the gut, I would use our new Gut Calm supplement. That's a really good one. All right, a couple more questions for time. Megan, where are all the podcasts listed in order for the new year? Well, wherever you listen to your podcasts. So we have it on Spotify, we have it on Apple Podcasts, we have it on Google Podcasts, we have it on Stitcher. We're trying to upload these onto our YouTube channel, but we keep getting stuff removed and getting banned. Oh, we're starting a Rumble account. So we got a Spectrum Awakening Rumble account. We only have one video on it right now, which is a vaccine video. Can't put vaccine videos on YouTube. So we made a Rumble account just for that. So we're going to start uploading these and trying to create playlists on our Rumble account just because we have more freedom on what we can upload. Look, we all know the powers that be don't want us talking out loud about vaccine side effects or toxins causing autism. They don't want that information out there. So we got to find these platforms that let us share this information. So we're trying Rumble. Diane, I was wondering what your new detox supplement removes. It's not indicated on the website. It removes a multitude of heavy metals and other non-heavy metal toxins, plastics, pesticides, glyphosates, etc. Marco says hello. Hello, Marco. Zulika, my son does the hip thrusting. The ABA helps him now. Instead of doing hip thrusting in front of everyone, he goes to his room and he's 8. Yeah, again, we got to work on that sensory stuff. Have you checked his hormones? Check estrogen and testosterone. Connie, hello from Mexico. Hi, Connie. I have not been to Mexico in a while. I think it's time. Brianna, what levels on a stool test would point to a leaky gut? These two. Calprotectin and zonulin. Those are the ones that are markers of inflammation. Okay. Molly, tips for helping a 4-year-old get over the fear of pooping on the potty. Well, number one, make sure they're watching you poop on the potty, okay? Have them watch you. That's number one. If they're pooping, if their poop hurts and they've got withholding constipation, get some mineral oil. You can get mineral oil in any drugstore. Mineral oil makes the poop really slippery, so you can't hold it. And maybe just work with ABA or behavioral therapy about sitting on the potty in general. So I don't know if he's scared of the potty or he's scared because pooping hurts in general. Kind of think about those things. But I love mineral oil. Zulika sent 10 stars. Thank you, Zulika. Facebook stars are a way to donate money to a Facebook Live speaker. We take 100% of our Facebook star money and donate it to autism support groups such as TACA and Autism Hope Alliance. So thank you. Alexandra from Romania. Hello, Alexandra. Gaseb, high OCD, especially in the morning. Number one, I want you to check for intestinal infections for this, 100%. And then try our Spectrum Tranquility and Common Cool. Diane, can neurotransmitter be balanced without removing toxins? Yeah, easy. It takes like 30 minutes. My son has a high dopamine because it doesn't convert to norepinephrine. Try our anger management. Tima, my son loses focus a lot in cognitive levels. He's very low. He's 11 and talks to himself all day. Well, I would try the Scourin solution. Tima, the Scourin solution is our 4-part protocol for balancing brain chemistry. Start there. Molly, the best supplement to help push past the echolalia phase, get more conversational. Any of our language stuff, go with Power and Focus, go with the Scourin solution. Start there, and then that doesn't work. I think we should get into either anti-inflammatories or hormone balancing. You want to test the estrogen and the testosterone on all kids, boys and girls. All right, guys, almost time. Diane, can oregano oil remove a yeast infection? It can. Win, hey there, my son with PANS is agitated sometimes. I watched your podcast on PANS Pandas. We are using the fabulous ViroClear and the anti-inflammatory supplements. ViroClear is a miracle. I agree, everybody. Which would you add to the protocol? Common Cool, temper tamer, or anger management? Common Cool. Go with that. All right, one more question. We're going to wrap up because of time. Bella, always on. Good morning from Carlsbad, California. My 14-year-old daughter is having lots of sleepless nights where I hear her humming ticks. She's very scared to go to high school and doesn't go to her classes. We're on the yeast mold bundle and the Scourin solution. Which tests would you like to see? We did our last test in Orange County with another doc, and it showed no pandas or PANS. Puberty has really made her fearful and a lot of anxiety. I think we need to go there. She's very smart, loves classical music. What else can we take her to? I wish you had an office in San Diego. Yeah, I wish I lived in San Diego. Man, it's glorious out there. Boy, I used to work for let me ramble. I used to work for a supplement company, Metabolic Maintenance, way back in the day. And the owner of it, was from San Diego. We'd go to his house, and man, it was so nice there. But I love going out and visiting that part of the world every October for the TACA conference. Anyway, I digest. Bella, I want you to try our Pregnenolone Calm and have her hormones tested. Test estrogen, test progesterone, test testosterone. All right. Great podcast, everybody. I'm going to wrap up because it's an hour. Where are we going to hit home? Let's sum up. Okay. Testing. Autism is a medical condition. There are different tests that will help us understand the medical imbalances in our kids with autism. Scientific research shows organic acids are off and abnormal in those with autism. And in fact, one research study said abnormal organic acids can predict autism 88% of the time. A multitude of our kids also have intestinal infections. So a stool test analyzing those intestinal infections, digestive ability, and inflammation are very important to help choose correct treatments and therapeutics for our kids. If you're going to be going down the road for testing and you wonder a place to start, organic acid and stool testing are the most common tests out there. Now, you can get these from your doctor. You can get them on our Spectrum Awakening website. If you get them through my website, you're going to get written instructions by me on different things that you can do. So consider testing for your child wherever you get it. If you've had a bunch of testing and you want my opinion on things, feel free to set up a telemedicine appointment. We can sit down. You can send me all your stuff. We'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb, see what you did, see what else you can do, and put you on a good treatment plan. Now, next week, the beginning of April, is World Autism Awareness Day, week, month, time. Yeehaw! We got our biggest sale of the year, 25%, all the supplements, all the lab tests, and we're going to have a new free ebook, The Advanced Guide to Helping Your Child with Autism. So that's a lot of fun stuff we're going to be launching next week. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for doing everything you can for your kids. If you've got a holiday weekend here, happy Easter. If you don't, have a great weekend anyway. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.